Thursday, September 13th. To order, rise for the invocation by Reverend Sandy and stay for the Pledge of Allegiance.
God, our divine spirit, we thank you for watching over our city, giving us just minimum flooding for our city and our residents. We thank you for the blessings you bestow on our city. We ask you to guide our council and our councilmen and women to make the right decisions for all of our citizens. We ask you to bless our city workers, and our residents. For this we are thankful. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, Ms. Shuck.
Yes, sir. Mayor Dale Massett.
Here.
Vice Mayor Terrence Rowe.
Here.
Councilwoman Nancy Britton. Here. Councilwoman Jenny Sorrell.
Here.
Councilman William Dittmer.
Here.
City Attorney Jim Matthew.
Here.
And City Manager Vince Lupo.
Here.
Okay.
I'll take it. Approval of minutes, pages 3 and 6.
Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second. General announcements? Any announcements?
We got to vote on a motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
General announcements? Council? Staff?
Okay, we're at comments from the general public. Ms. Spaulding. Reverend Spaulding.
Yes, I would like to say that on Sunday morning, Sand Pebbles had a memorial service for 9/11. And I would like to say they did a wonderful job. I think we should all be proud of the work that they put into it and for who was there, and just the whole thing was great. Thank you.
Others from the public. Ms. Tosley.
Good evening, Council. Jim Hoster, 4912 Sunset Boulevard. Well, I'm flooded again. Those of you, Terry and Nancy, have been by the property in previous years. We are flooded, and it is on private property. And it's on private property because of the city. We cannot drain out because basically you approved in previous years. In 1995, you approved the building of the house directly behind me. You told them to elevate 18 inches above the roadway, to fill in the drainage that was along the north side of Limestone, and to basically put their driveway at grade with no culvert underneath it. In 99, you did the same thing 2 houses to the west. So the drainage that was going along Limestone that we drained to, when we were there in 93, we had no problem. And as those houses were built, the problem became worse. Then an illegal dumping was done on the Nimchek property that was the vacant property in between that kept water from, because they were concerned of snakes at the time. So that was done illegally, and code enforcement never caught it. And then they put in a swimming pool in 2005, and they took the spoil from that and blocked off the last drainage of water. So consequently, the water on our property, the properties to the west of us, at least 3 of them, and the properties to the east of us, all are completely flooded, and the only way the water gets out is through evaporation. Right now, it is turned to rot, and the mosquitoes are horrible. I've contacted the county. They came out. They said that the mosquitoes were dead. Well, my wife was killing them. She killed a dozen last night inside the house. And with Zika being what it is, this is a real problem for us. So I think there's a solution for the city, and that is if you can reinstate the drainage along Limestone. It requires you to put some sort of ditching under those 2 properties, and then put it along Limestone. You can carry it down to Olsner. You've got an outfall at Olsner that goes over to the mosquito control outfall, and you've got one at the north end where Pat Rogers' property is that goes over, and there's an outfall there that goes to the estuary. So there is a solution to it. I tried to do it myself, and I contacted the building department, and he got back with me today, because I wanted to burn my property, because then I can contain my water and treat my water, and I was told that I couldn't put a lick of dirt in there, not 1 inch, and that I cannot do anything. So I'm left in an impossible situation at this point.
Would you stay for a second, if you'll humor me? Just cut that off. Jim, Pat, can you speak to that? Because Pat and I were back there, and you remember the drainage goes this way, and then it goes that way, and then it goes straight up. Do you agree with Jim that that would help their situation?
I wrote notes to go down and take a look at it tomorrow. I wasn't, the driveways and the houses that were built were before my time, and I'm
Yeah.
not sure of how it drained, to be honest with you. But let me take a look at it to see if there's something.
Well, you can speak with Pat Rogers or Bill Bennett, people that were born and raised on that side of the river, and they're all very familiar with it, and they both, well, you can see Pat Rogers' house, there is drainage there,
Yes.
because that's where the confluence is, and that's where it goes across and under limestone and then out to the estuary. Or at least it should go out to the estuary. I think it's blocked somewhere over by Marina Palms, but
Are you gonna be around tomorrow where you could?
yes, certainly.
That, Pat, I mean, trust me, Pat showed me where it goes, and honestly, it's crazy. But I think we're gonna have to adopt something generally over the whole city to look at all of the different.
I figure there's at least somewhere between 12 and 15 acres of flooded land over there. I tried to pump it out, but my pump blew up.
Well, that's kind of our problem, but Pat will show you where he thinks things go, and if everybody can come up with doing the same thing at Candlelight, it goes all different directions, so it's a citywide problem.
Okay. Well,
Just
forward to
give,
seeing it.
maybe you can get his number and just meet up.
I'll get with you. I'll get with you.
Okay, okay. Thank you, Jim.
Thanks.
Anyone else? I know her too.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Pastor Steve Jarvis, right here in Port Richey,
Sir,
and just moved here in January from Missouri, so I'm new to the area. But as a representative, well, first of all, let me just say this: Jesus and His church is live and well in Port Richey. Amen, right?
amen.
And but I want you to know, with everything, all the struggles from the hurricane that the city has seen, I want you to know that we want to be a resource to the city to be able to help as much as we can. And whatever you need, we want to be there. We want to be a great support to the city. So I just thought I would stand up here and let you know that you can count on us for whatever you need. All you got to do is say the word. Okay?
Thank you very much.
God bless you.
Thank you.
Bless. Ms. Hoster, I'm sorry.
Jane Hoster, 4912 Sunset Boulevard. This has nothing to do with the drainage problem. I received this letter. We don't flood because we're 14 and a half feet in the air. But when I was reading it, I thought, this is going to be a database. This creates a database for people to do public records requests to see whose home's flooded, rental, or owner occupied. Is it going to create a database for that?
Ma'am?
Yes.
Essentially, what this information is to be accumulated for a FEMA damage assessment for the city. The city then transmits, and there is a copy here, that will be transmitted to the county, and the county will incorporate it into theirs, and it will go to the federal government. FEMA was here Sunday conducting interviews, conducting reviews of flooding areas, and anything submitted to the city is a matter of public record.
Okay, really, that's all I wanted to know. If all these, if, say, when people were gonna buy a home or rent a home, that they were going to go to this database to see in whatever part of the city that they're interested in, that their home is showing as that is flooded and potentially will continue to flood if the situations that they're in are not ameliorated. That was as much as I could decipher from just 6 lines.
The effort of those 6 lines is to obtain as much information as possible. The accumulation of the data is not being stored in the manner which you are referring to. That may be a future effort, an expensive effort. Our efforts were to enumerate the individual properties and then to present them to the county and to the federal government after the county.
But it's public record once that you get
Anything
them.
anything submitted to this community, to this city, is matter of public
So
record.
when somebody applies for this, their requests are public record.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's that's the only question
Sure.
I have.
But it is the city's intention to try and ameliorate, to mitigate future flooding issues within the city. And part and parcel of the government's, this government's effort will be towards that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Tom Brown?
Thomas Brown, 7436 Candlelight Court. I hope that you all have been working feverishly trying to find proof that Lake Cox is a dug lake. For those that did, I'm sure you found nothing. I hope that someday the city of Port Richey will admit that Lake Cox is not a dug lake, and therefore city ordinances that apply only to a dug lake do not apply to Lake Cox. Some city ordinances do need clarification. The foot-deep water on Candlelight Court and Lantern Lane has receded, and I would like to thank the city for doing a nice job of sweeping our streets. I was assured by the driver of Port Richey pickup truck number 316 that the pipes alongside Broadway will not be pumping water into Port Richey. The man was driving FEMA people around the city to look at flood damage on 9/11. We don't need any more water in the 17-acre wetland. I would hope that the Equibor company work that is being done along Broadway will not adversely affect Port Richey. Thank you.
Okay, any others from the public? I bring it to council. Any thoughts, comments?
Just want to thank Sand Pebble for the invitation to their event. Sunday, it was beautiful as always. And the glazed donuts, I didn't get to try because they were off the menu for me.
Thanks to the staff through all the help with this flooding. Police department, fire department, everybody had a hand in helping. Thank you. Yeah, I think in a tough time, it gave whatever comfort was available. At least people knew that you were out there, that you cared, and we thank you for that service. The other thing, on Monday, Mr. Lupo and I met with the new ranger over at Salt Springs Park. We discussed with him the possibility of bringing the hike and bike trail into the park. He's very receptive. Seems to be of a mind where he wants to create that and more interaction, getting people into that park. And so the questions are going to be basically whether we come in through the back or through the front. But I think I really got a good feel that he is progressive and he wants to make things happen. And I am looking forward to him coming back and telling us that we're going to do this and get it done. The other thing we found was amazing, a sign that was buried back in a shed, which told all about the history of the Salt Springs Park back through the ages. And it is sitting on the ground, looks brand new. I believe it was made by the county, if I remember right. And so he's going to have that posted as well. Maybe we can get another one for whatever end of the park that goes on. We can do the back side, the front side, whatever, but it's a beautiful sign. And he wants to create more kayaking. He's very, very motivated to bring people into Port Richey and to show this jewel of a park that we've got right there. So more to come, I hope.
If I might add upon what the Vice Mayor has just stated, Mr. Belden of the State Park was extremely receptive to our overall efforts, which will be to eventually connect the city of Port Richey's bike and hike trail all the way to the city of Newport Richey and beyond, once and for all, to make a complete bike and hike trail all the way from one end of the city up through the state park, all the way to Newport Richey, utilizing some of the right-of-way that existed for underneath of 19. This was a project that was discussed and planned many, many years ago, but has gone by the wayside. And if council is of a mind in the very near future, we will begin that process to once and for all have a truly connected bike and hike path all the way from one end of our county practically to the other.
Any other comments? Okay, quickly to add to Mr. Lupo, the MPO still has the wraparound under the river on their agenda, so I have agended that. It's on in their books, and so maybe we can go forward. I'd like to thank Mr. Lupo for his response to this hurricane, and the staff, not for doing your jobs, but for doing them so well, and the police as well. And that's about all I have to say. Let's go to boards and committees. Mr. Roth.
Other council.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did one of y'all want to speak? No. Mr. Roth.
Good evening, Council. Carl Roth, 8031 Island Drive, Port Richey, on behalf of the Port Authority Board. Over 2 workshops we had with the board, we took a look at different ordinances that the city had associated with the port itself. One, Chapter 44, the waterways, piers, docks, and other marine structures, Chapter 10, Article 4, and Parks and Rec, Chapter 20. We didn't focus on the whole thing, but waterways we did for the most part, but the others, just as they related to port activities. Associated with these, we saw that there's certainly an extensive list of ordinances on the books that have been incorporated over a great period of time. And many are okay, but significant numbers require revision or elimination due to inconsistencies with either city codes, Florida statutes, or our ability to apply them. So our approach was to take a look at these ordinances and ask ourselves, what kind of city do we want for current and future residences? So a couple things like to highlight. One that we bumped into initially as we started going through it was whether any infractions based on the whole revenue collection aspect, do we fall under Pasco County Uniform Fine Schedules, or do we fall under Florida Statute 327? It was a mixed bag there, so I didn't know if that created confusion for the city, but it certainly created confusion to us because there's different schedules and different rates associated with different things. Now, the chief writes the citation, maybe it says that it applies to 327, but if it applies to the Pasco County piece, how do we know? So that was some piece that we thought needed to be clarified.
Is that something you can do, or do we need attorneys to do that? You're
I'll
gonna
get to
get
that
there?
if you could hold that for a minute,
Right.
Mr. Mayor. Also, what we saw that it was not clear under the ordinances who had authority. Was it the police department? Was it the building department? Was it code enforcement? So for something like derelict property, does the police department come in and write that up? Does it code enforcement, or do any or all of the above? So as we went through, we asked ourselves the question, well, who would be enforcing this? And it wasn't obviously clear. And if there were questions in the city, maybe we're ignoring things because it's not clear on who should be enforcing it. There was a general concern about enforcement of existing ordinances that are on the books. For example, there is a dock that's in Harbor Isles that's built closer than 100 feet to the main federal channel. Well, that's against the rules from the city standpoint, from the Army Corps, and Florida DEP, but it still got built. So just our ability to enforce things that are there haven't been active historically and not in the too recent past. Also, something that was very interesting to me, because I've been on the wake issue in the river for a long time, as you all know, but it came through the ordinances, particularly 44-40, is that uniform boating citations can be mailed to owners. So if the police department sits there in a car at 4:30 on a Saturday afternoon and gets the numbers, they can write that up and mail it to the infractor at that point in time. Jet skis, and we've seen a number of these each and every weekend go through. But that was an interesting piece that we came across that we passed on to council. The other thing that was important that's come up in our neighborhood lately, because we had flooding back in February and also most recently with Herming, is that we may want to consider, I was looking at the code, to extend the no wake rules to city streets during flooding, because it causes significant damage to residences that are there. And we have a number of contractors in our particular neighborhood, but they go parading through at not 20 miles an hour, not 30 miles an hour, but they just go parading through in their big trucks. So anyway, that was something we wanted to highlight. Another one that we found that was intriguing was that there's an ordinance on the books that states that all docks must have reflective tape on them and for safety. And I have not seen one dock on the river that's ever had reflective tape. So I thought that was an interesting one, and certainly from the board's standpoint, we're concerned about safety, so that kind of rose to the top of the list. Another one that we came across that we had discussed a couple years ago was the electroshock hazards in the waterways. And we discussed with the fire department and building department at that time, and they said there wasn't anything we could do with existing structures. However, under the code, section 10-280, we are at liberty to go inspect those docks on an annual basis if we so choose. So one of the things that we discussed was to get the equipment that we need for our first responders so they're safe if they have to do any rescues in the water. And secondly, exercise that equipment to do an inspection to at least validate that our canals are safe when kids jump in or go swimming or any of those things, because we're at risk in the city for that. Also that one of the things that has been on the radar screen for a while is that we did not find any direct references to prevent commercial operations on a non-commercial dock. So at my house, I can go and rent it to Mr. Dittmar to keep his boat there, and there's nothing explicitly in the code that prevents me from doing that. There's some flagrations that I can do, but there's nothing explicit to do that. So we think that ought to be strengthened up in our residential community to make sure we don't have commercial and recreational intermingling. And one of the other things that we saw was that Board of Adjustments was not involved with the review of docks and piers. So I know they're involved with a lot of things that have to do with construction in the city, but we thought maybe the Board of Adjustments would be an appropriate entity to relieve the City Council of some of those burdens. And also, last but not least, the parks have a number of ordinances that are in conflict with typical community use. And my favorite is that we are not allowed to walk our dogs in the city parks. However, the parks have numerous poop bags stations around, inferring that it's okay to walk your dog there. So also we saw things, for example, in the parks that you can't get wet when you launch your boat. If you launch your boat and you go in the water, supposedly, the Port Richey police are going to be there or somebody and saying you can't do that because that's against the code. So anyway, what we want to do is make the city more friendly. We want to eliminate some of these things that put people automatically in jeopardy to the rules of the city. So our recommendations are that we took a look at each of the different code areas. So around the waterways, we suggest that a city citizen committee be put in place to review those and make those changes as appropriate. And certainly the Port Authority Board would be happy to participate in that activity. But in order to make it easier on Mr. Matthew, we figured instead of us going and doing chicken scratch and pass it along, let's make sure we get it right. One of the big things that we saw was to make sure that the Florida and U.S. Coast Guard regulations and rules are incorporated in rather than repeating them. and things that are in conflict with rules. It makes it easier for enforcement because we've got something on a federal and state level and it's consistent. Basically, we think getting new signage at Nix Park to highlight the ability to enforce the waterway rules and then begin making those mailings as soon as possible will help revenues in the city. And then we believe that establishing a separate committee to review pier docks and other structures would be appropriate. And one of the things that we think ought to be considered is perhaps changing, instead of council having to do all those reviews, move it to either the buildings department or the Board of Adjustments, just for consistency and simplicity for anybody wanting to build those types of structures in the city. Also, regarding the docks and piers, to incorporate Florida DEP and U.S. Army Corps and Coast Guard regs, instead of reinventing the wheel ourselves, it would make it a lot simpler. I've done some outreach to the Army Corps already. Also, to begin inspecting docks with electrical connections to identify and eliminate electroshock. This is a safety issue from the Port Authority's board standpoint. We think it's imperative that we do that. There's been reports of electrical tingling in the waters. It's particularly dangerous when the tides are low and it's a greater freshwater amount. We're going into winter. Certainly people won't be as intrigued by it, but making sure we have the equipment in the city and then being able to use it, we believe, is very, very important. We believe that setting up the Board of Adjustments as a reviewer for new marine structures like docks would be a better way to go about it from the city and simplify things. And then in the last area, establish a committee to change and eliminate any parks and rec ordinances where appropriate. One of the other ones that we talked about, literally, you can't take alcohol from your car to your boat when you're loading up. And I don't know anybody that fishes without a beer. So I think that's an important one that we have to get on. I've had a number of complaints about that in my role at the Port Authority Board. Essentially, what we want to do is simplify those ordinances to make sure that the parks area is particularly complicated. We can simplify that a lot. And then make all our parks pet friendly and eliminate arbitrary rules and make everyone a violator. The other area around boats is to permit non-combustion vessels, i.e. kayaks and electrical boats at the parks instead of prohibiting them. That way we can make our community more vessel friendly for those, and they're safe vessels. And then obtain new signage at all the parks to highlight the rules and begin enforcement. So those are our recommendations. Those are some of the things that we saw that we wanted to point out we thought might be interesting to you. And so I ask if there's any questions.
Well, like, Ms. Lupo, can you respond to some of those?
Certainly. First of all, I think I can speak for council to thank you and your committee for the awesome work that you've accomplished. Going through this detailed analysis that you've prepared was indeed a mighty labor, and it had to be mostly a labor of love, because I'm sure parts of it were very boring. I will take your report. I will review it. I will get with our city attorney, Mr. Matthew. We will go over it. We will try and incorporate many of the recommendations that you and your board have made. And with respect to any questions that we might have, you will be expecting a phone call from me where we'll talk directly, or I will ask to come before your board for clarification, but we will move forward as quickly and as lawfully as we possibly can.
And we have notes, all three of us have notes, the various pieces. We didn't feel like it was necessary to bring all the minutia forward.
Certainly.
I do have one other thing I'd like to point out, if I may. There's been a number of discussions about waterfront park and boat ramps. And the proposal that has been on the table for a number of times, and there's been, yes, I like it, no, I don't, and all that kind of stuff. So I was getting frustrated with the waste of energy. So what I did is reached out to, I have some contacts in DEP in Tampa that does permitting. And I spoke with Kevin McLaughlin, who is there. And basically, one of the discussions we had was it costs money to go through this process, and we don't have a whole lot of money to do anything. So what he encouraged was that we ask for a pre-application meeting to discuss with them what's on our mind, what we're thinking about, what we'd like to do, what could be done. and he'd be more than happy to do that, all right, in the department. However, what I did learn was that the ramp as proposed on the southwest portion of the park would not happen in this lifetime. DEP said there's no way because of the mangroves and the seagrass, and there's no way Army Corps would allow it. So we got 2 strikes against us. Now, he encouraged that there are other options potentially. One, and this goes back to this pre-app meeting, one is the northwest corner of the park. Now, that's where the basin is. So he's looking at aerials at this time. He said the basin may be a possibility to consider because there's no seagrass out the northwest side and where that channel is. So that's one. The other was where the existing kayak ramp is, might be another. One of the things I was concerned about there was the narrowness of the channel and adversely impacting gill dogs and their ability to use the channel for ingress and egress. So basically, those are a couple of alternatives, but the main thing that I wanted to impart to you is that they are more than happy to do a pre-app meeting. It doesn't cost anything but our time. So I would encourage us to do that, and that will put a lot of this talk to sleep. And there's one other piece that it's important, I think, to note, particularly since Mr. Lupo is new here, is that we had an easement associated with Waterfront Park that the city had negotiated. That's gone away because the city did not respond to DEP to sustain that easement. So whether we intended to do that or not may or may not be consequential, but they were surprised that we let that easement go, and it was let go for lack of responsiveness. So I would encourage, just as a matter of course, if we have things like that are given to us, make sure we don't drop the ball unintentionally.
No. Kevin McLaughlin is with what part of DEP?
DEP permitting.
Okay, he's at permitting?
Yes.
Now, you realize we have to go through FCT before we get to DEP, although FCT is below, is it?
Well, there's multiple complexities associated with Waterfront Park. There's certainly the ownership issue and the responsibilities we have at FCT. I purely looked at the permitting components because I have more familiarity with that and experience with the permitting side through Coast Guard and Army Corps.
Okay. Now, Carl, as far as your recommendations, I know Vince is going to get back to you. Do you think there are citizens that would participate in, you've got 3 different?
I believe there should be.
Okay.
I believe the way we published our meeting was that we were having a Port Authority Board meeting and we were going to discuss ordinances. I believe some more attention that we're going through the ordinances may give us some good PR in the community that we're trying to make some fundamental changes in certain areas that we think might be beneficial. So at least opening that up in a more official way may be a good thing.
You did a really good job, and I appreciate it. The electric thing we've talked about for over a year.
Right.
And keep bringing it. Any other?
Just a quick question.
Yes, sir.
When I ran or I should say redid the electric that was out on my dock, I made sure GFIs were everywhere. Will those trip?
They should.
Okay.
But the rub is that certainly a lot of the residences are older, and if we don't go back in and verify, some residences may not have GFIs. And I'm not an electrical expert, but,
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
okay?
Council.
Any others? Any other questions?
I do, sir.
Very good job,
you.
Carl.
Thank you.
Okay, we are at the consent agenda, and I have a problem, so before we get well, I guess we had a motion to approve, or do you have a problem as well? No problem. Jim, this is legal. Augustine Construction, if I remember, had a fine as of April 30th, $1,000 a day for not finishing, and they haven't, I believe it's past April 30th.
I'm not familiar with
always
any.
late.
I'm not familiar with any fine that's been issued, sir. I'm not
No.
where that came from.
In-
The fine.
in-
We find them or something?
No, you, in their contract,
Oh.
there is a clause that says April 30th finish date, every day after that is $1,000 fine
I
that
don't
they-
know. I've never actually reviewed the contract.
Okay.
I haven't even seen this $35,000, what payment this is, so I haven't seen it. This
Okay,
payment.
I would ask the council that we have Mr. Matthew review the Augustine construction contract. If I'm mistaken, that's one thing, but I'm pretty sure I'm not. And go with the rest of the consent.
Absolutely.
Okay?
We need a motion for that?
Motion to.
I'll make a motion to strike the St. Augustine construction invoice from the consent agenda.
I'll second it.
Okay, and with the, implying that with the rest goes through.
Yes.
Okay. All motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Now, we are at Hurricane Hermine update. Mr. Lupo?
Yes, thank you, Mayor, Council, and citizens. We had an event called Hurricane Hermine. As part of our process, we prepared a damage assessment report. Our report provided specific information, both for us so that we could submit it to FEMA and to the state and to the other branches of the federal government, Department of Agriculture, and several other branches, in order to assist us in obtaining funds to mitigate some of the damages that the citizens and the businesses received during this event. Very succinctly, the total damages to this community to date, not including some additional reports that are still pending, and some significant reports, is a total of $2,323,568.48. That is a significant amount of money for our community. That is a significant impact to our community. Part of it has to do with the severity of the incident. Part of it has to do with our previous efforts at mitigation. But essentially, your staff has attempted to the best of their ability, our fire, our public works, utilities, certainly our police department and many of the office staff, to respond efficiently to the demands placed upon us. We are in the process now, as the gentleman spoke about, cleaning some of the streets at Candlelight, but we have been picking up commercial containers filled with debris. We have 3 of them out there that have been emptied and reset. We have been sending our staff street by street, road by road, house by house, to try and help as many residents as possible, many commercial establishments as possible. There are grant eligibilities, and we sent out mailings to 1,250 establishments, residences, and commercial operations within the community to alert them to the fact of the ability and the possibility for them to individually receive grant funds to help them with the rebuilding of either their business or their residence. Some businesses are eligible for grants and are not aware of it, and if they would call us, we'd be more than happy to talk to them, and that's part of the reason why we sent out that mailing. Loss of business is a major effect. This was a holiday weekend when this event hit us, so there are restaurants and other venues that lost substantial amounts of funds. There are employee costs associated with it, everything from their time to the amounts of material that they use and the damages that they obtained. Residences that were flooded. Some directly relating to the inordinate amount of rain that we received and the high tide. Others were because of past practices or processes that allowed issues to develop, some of which Mr. Hostler referred to. we are in the process of reviewing many of those issues, and we hope to provide some response and some relief. One of the most important things that we are about doing, aside from assisting the individual residents and businesses, and to aid in their efforts to get back up, is to ensure that our processes of drainage, our canals, our outflows are properly and maintained to the best of our ability. That is a task that we will be on, we have been on, and we will be on it even to a larger degree. Again, this is an interim report. It is a public report. It is fully documented, and is part and parcel of the record. We will be adding to it, and I'll be coming back to council with a further report, and also with some of the efforts that we've taken to ameliorate some of the damage and to mitigate potentially some of the future damage. And this has a very drastic effect upon the flood insurance for this community. I'm keenly aware of that, and I'm attempting to move in a direction that will beneficially impact this community. Major effort is to drive down the cost of flood insurance. It is almost prohibitive, in my opinion. And that, Mr. Mayor, other than to simply use this podium, and I know council's best comments as earlier evidence, to compliment the city staff, our fire department, our police department, our utilities, public works, our office workers, for the sincere effort and care and almost love that they put into trying to assist residents of our community. They did a yeoman's work, and they are to be congratulated. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. We have reading of ordinance 16652. Mr. Matthew.
Thank you. This is the second reading of ordinance number 16652, an ordinance of the City of Port Richey, Florida, creating Section 18-82, possession of cannabis or paraphernalia, making possession of 20 grams or less of cannabis unlawful, making possession of drug paraphernalia as defined herein unlawful, providing for civil penalties, specifying the amount of civil fine for violation, and providing an effective date. Looking for a motion to approve. This is the final reading.
Motion to approve 16652.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion from council? To the public? Anyone want to speak to this matter? Well, that was a lot easier than I thought. Bring it back to council. Have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Nay.
Nay.
Passes 3-2. Please. Okay. Local mitigation strategy, we are too.
Yes.
You're gonna take that one over, I hope.
Certainly. As earlier stated, there is the Pasco County Local Mitigation Strategy Committee meets and comes up with ways and vehicles to mitigate future damage that may result from events. It is extremely important that we follow these attachments and that we work closely with that board, because this, as I spoke earlier, helps to address the issues concerning flood insurance. And flood insurance is near and dear to every resident, every business within this community, as evidenced by this last event. I would simply recommend the council accepts the the review as submitted, and rest assured that the city manager and staff will be working very closely with this committee to come forward to hopefully improve the issues with respect to future mitigation and flood insurance.
So you need a motion.
A motion to accept.
Motion to accept, do I have one?
To accept.
Second.
Second? I don't think we need to, public interested in talking to this. Back to the council, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
List of approved engineers.
Where we at? We're at old business?
Yes.
Lost my goodies there.
Approved engineers.
Oh. Don't have Tammy putting mine together. I have that, yeah.
Here.
I don't have a, are you talking this one?
I have approval.
Oh, the engineers, I got it. We just need a motion, Jim, to approve the one you put on.
Yeah, these are two new ones, yeah.
Yes.
Just like before.
I don't have any. Who are the two, you can put them? Okay, so we have C&D Engineering and Florida Design Consultant. Jim, these were used in the past and we didn't,
You want me to explain?
yes, please, because, we had, the last administration really didn't follow much,
The, if the council recalls that a couple of meetings ago, we went back and requested a statement of qualifications from all the engineers on our list. Some dropped off, but everyone that gave them to us, we put them back on the list, okay? These are two, and we also added Dewberry to it too, there's one new one. We did that last time. Now, these two engineers here, I had been dealing with, and the two engineers that had been used, and it was never on the list. And so it was my recommendation to put them on the list, but then Mr. Lupo took over, and he's had some dealings with them, and I haven't had any problems with them. These are the two engineering consultants, Florida Design Consultants. They're local in Newport Richey, which is kind of nice, and C&D Engineering. I'm a little embarrassed to say, and Jocelyn, you could correct me, but one of these is this issue concerning Augustine. They stepped up to the plate pretty well, because there was a lot of issues trying to get them to finish this project, and I needed them. And matter of fact, there was some other issues with the other engineer, that's C&D Engineering, who helped us with BRW. We had some other, who's,
C&D helped us with the utility project, and
With the utility
Florida
project,
Design
yeah.
Consultant helped us with BRW.
yeah, so there was some issues, but they stepped up to the plate and they didn't have any problems with it. They were professional, so having them on the list was my recommendation.
Yes.
And Mr. Lupo's been dealing with them, so.
Yes, I would request that council approves this list. Of course, it'll be up to me to select these at a future date. With any issues coming up between now and then, I certainly will add that into consideration with respect to utilizing any of these firms. If we have a problem with some of them, they certainly won't be utilized, and then they may, in fact, be removed from the list at some future date. So I would request at this stage approval. I'll confer with the city attorney as to the other issues brought up by council.
Have a motion.
Motion to approve. Second.
A motion and a second. Would the public like to speak to this? Bring it back. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we are about to the end of this road, aren't we?
That's it. Old business.
We're in old business. Mrs. Terrell, do you have anything?
Yes, I was wondering about the feather flags. Do we have anything on that? Because I've noticed they've been popping up around.
Yes, we had a planning and zoning meeting that issue was addressed. They made some recommendations, and at a future date, we plan on bringing that back to council. We've been looking at other jurisdictions to try to find out what they do in relation to feather flags, but it will be on an upcoming meeting.
Super. And Mr. Duffy's property, that's part of the old business. Have we made a decision on anything with him and his little piece of
Oh,
paradise?
He
I
provided an
don't think we-
updated survey to Jim, I believe.
I haven't seen it, he says
Okay.
he dropped.
Mr. Dunn, would you come up, please?
Okay, now I'm with the issue.
You remember?
Sure, absolutely.
Eugene Duffy, 4948 Bay Park Drive.
The one with the little triangle in
There.
heaven?
Excuse me?
Triangle in heaven there?
Basically, at the last meeting,
Let me explain it, Mr. Duffy, I
Matthew.
could probably do it easier.
Matthew.
Want me to explain it for you?
Okay.
I'll make
Go
it
ahead.
easier for
Sure.
you. Mr. Duffy, last year, right?
Yes.
Came before council to purchase a small parcel of land, triangular. Okay, I researched this when it came in. The city council denied selling it to him, but said he could use the land, and you posted a bond
Right, for an easement on the property.
for an easement on the property, so it's just relatively small. At that point in time, and I reviewed the minutes, one of the major reasons that the city did not want to sell the parcel, Mr. Duffy, is the fact that the city, it was waterfront property, and the city wanted to keep access to the waterfront for whatever that was worth. What's changed now is a new survey has come in. And I think a couple of weeks ago or a month ago, you said something over, but there was no new survey in it. So I said, look, you know, you're giving it to me. I'm not going to put it on the council agenda until you show me something new. So a new survey did come in. I haven't looked at it yet. I haven't seen it. But apparently, it is not waterfront property. And so I told him to give that to Mr. Lupo and see if any
Correct.
council members wants to put it back on for reconsideration. Fair statement?
Yes.
Okay, question is, I haven't seen the new survey. We had talked about you would always give us access if we needed to drill through to Salt Springs for a
Yes.
flushing.
However, you'd also have
And
to
that'll
get,
be in the,
yeah,
If I might,
Yeah.
I will review all the information
Okay.
submitted. I've gone out and seen the piece of property. I'll get with the city attorney, and I will bring it back to council with a recommendation
Okay.
that, with whatever conditions, that should be a win-win for both parties.
okay, great, thank you. Appreciate it.
any others?
The only last issue I have, and I know we've all received emails regarding the Berlin pump station and sewage in the Gulf and the smell over there. Do you have you checked this out?
There isn't a pump station.
Well,
He
I'm
was
just
being-
saying what was written to me.
Well, I wrote him back and I said, I'm not sure what you're talking about. And he said, well, you know,
Well,
there isn't one there. And he was being facetious, I think.
Okay.
I think the
There
problem
isn't
is,
one on Berlin, is there? A pump lift station?
I haven't been notified of any of this yet. This is all.
There isn't. He wrote it so as to say there was the smell of he wants a lift station, there's what I believe.
Is that what he wants, is a
Well, I
station
just
there?
asked him, I told him I didn't carry my map of city lift stations around when I'm checking.
Okay.
So that's what I think he wants. I just have to talk to him. I told him that Mr. Lupo and I might come by and apparently there's not one there, Pat, is that correct? On Berlin, if you were coming off Old Post East on Berlin, and I don't know what there's two streets there, they end on 19, a manhole cover at that end.
Yeah,
And
there's a dead-end manhole cover there on Berlin, but on Berlin itself, there is no lift station. It's on Old Post Road,
Yes, and
the closest one. Yeah, the closest one is Old Post Road, and then our main lift station right behind Culver's right there.
I think what he was trying to ask for was to have a lift station there. I'm not sure, but I told him I'd come by and see him as Mr. Lee.
Well, it is kind of disturbing to think that we have sewage floating around
Well,
our
I agree.
neighborhoods.
I absolutely agree. You had the same impression I did when I
Yeah,
got the email.
okay. I just thought I'd ask about it since we received a couple of emails regarding that.
If I might, Councilwoman, there are 54 lift stations in the city. All during event Hermine, our employees were running constantly to each station to the best of their ability to keep them pumping. Obviously, there were a couple of stations that were absolutely beyond capacity because of the situation. One of our main concerns, of course, is the ecology and safety of the citizens. We had our vacuum trucks out to try and assist. We had our electrical equipment. And there were very few that were not up and running, other than those that had to be briefly turned off because of life safety issues. But at this stage, we'll take a hard look at the issue you just brought up, and we'll see whether or not there needs to be a lift station there, or what the requirements are, or whether it was just a storm-related issue.
Okay, thank you.
By the way, I would like to say, your suggestion for having the old business has been very well taken. Yeah, it keeps us on our toes. Any other thoughts, or do I hear that? Mrs. Britton?
Just real quick, I wanted to say this before the pastor left. I went over to the mobile home park and I left my phone number, and I had a lady call me that needed some help. So if anybody has any churches or whatnot that want to go over, leave their number for some of the people. This lady happened to lose her car. I ended up taking her to get a new car. But anyway, they probably could use some help over there.
Anything else? Mr. Dittmer, Jeff?
Nope, I'm good.
Okay, Mr. Rose, you want to do your duty?
Just real quickly, I did not hear it myself. I heard there was a discussion again at Pasco County's meeting about Magnolia Valley Golf Course. I guess that could possibly be a solution or a partial solution to some of the problem that those poor people at Mobile Home Park been experiencing. I hope they get moving on it soon, because
That's been happening for years, and the county's been notified. They're even suing them.
but they bought the property this time, so they.
They're suing the county
Yeah.
over the flooding.
Yeah, they have a suit with the county, the new owners of the mobile home. The Friday night, I guess the second to worst night, Friday night, I was over there, went over to Rowan Road. The county's still pumping water into the trailer park, and it's down like 4 feet off the bank. And I've talked to Mr. Marino about that.
What about digging it deeper? I mentioned that to Jim. I said, can't they dig that retention pond deeper? We all know it floods, so if we could dig the retention
But
pond deeper.
Nancy, it isn't even I don't know, it's a pond, but it comes up in kind of a canal-like form, and then there's a bank that goes up, and my guesstimate was 4 feet. They're pumping from here, but it's going, and they're already 4 feet under here, and it's down that far.
There's another waterway behind it.
Huh?
Here's the retention pond, and then there's another waterway behind it.
Right, but what I'm saying is, if they had eyes there, like I was sitting there looking, the water wasn't a threat anywhere, at least unless it's way back, and they could cut it off and then let something catch up at Suncoast, and then, okay, we gotta start pumping again. But there's nobody there, it's just on a flap valve. When it gets to a certain point, it's gonna pump, no matter what's happened at Suncoast. So I've talked to Jack about that, and I don't know what they're gonna do, but they're getting sued. I took the regional manager around and of the new company, and maybe he isn't worried about our residents, but more the money. The county has got a plan to build a 20-acre retention pond in Magnolia Valley, and but they didn't dig fast enough.
Is that what they're doing on the corner of Little and Mass?
I don't know. It's
They've
cleared,
cleared
but
that area out.
Yeah.
but it's not.
And when I
That's
asked
not
Jack
part of
Mariano
Magnolia
why,
Valley.
he said for conservation reasons or whatnot. And I said, Jack, really? He said they took almost every tree out on the whole corner.
Conservation.
So when he went back to look at it, he was like, yeah, well, I don't know why.
But that isn't part of Magnolia Valley. I went down there, and I know where you're.
It's not part of that.
No, but I thought it was part of the watershed or whatever. But
Seems a little strange, doesn't it?
Pasco County has a lot of flooding problems, so. And unfortunately, we've had a lot of rain in the last couple of years.
Chief?
Oh, sorry.
I don't know if you were notified, but today we got notice that the Salvation Army is selling their property, so they will not be feeding homeless there anymore. That's all gonna be shutting down, so that should help with our homeless population.
Absolutely.
They're
And
selling it, wow, can we afford to buy that? So we don't get enough.
I'll find out. Well, we don't, you know, I want to be compassionate for people with meals, but we have the perfect hurricane or storm here. You got a methadone clinic and a food line, and the police can change them from park to park, huh, Chief? So, maybe that's step one.
That's the entirely different issue you just mentioned, chasing them from park to park. One of the moves that I would hope we make in the very, very near future is to better secure our parks. The parks are open access. Our Waterfront Park, it's just a gate there. Anybody can walk around it and practically live in those dilapidated restrooms, which we are going to take down and do something with as quickly as possible when we ameliorate many of the problems at the Waterfront Park. But with respect to Brasher Park, with respect to Olsner, with respect to Waterfront Park, and even Nix Park, I would like to incorporate a little bit more security for many, many reasons, most of all for the protection of our residents and surrounding businesses. That's it, sir.
Any other business?
I have a quick question for Pat. Did you notice in the city when they did the construction on 19 and raised it up a little bit higher with all these, did we get more flooding based from that?
No, they actually opened up better drainage off of 19, which.
So it's reducing it for us?
It actually helped. It did.
I have another question, same question.
It's the opposite for me, where my shop is in Newport Richie, it's twice as bad.
They were pumping it into that drain that was on Ridge, like built-in drain, if you will, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Where does that go?
Most of that ends up down by the bridge, actually. I'd never.
On 19?
Yeah, on 19. It ends up on this side of the bridge. There's an exit right there by that restaurant.
Yeah, between the bridge and the restaurant, there's a culvert right there.
That's where most of it ends up.
Now, the culverts that go through the pond go under 19, they do a right turn, left turn, they end up on Springer, I think, right? Or they end up going out Springer and
Through
past
Springer
that,
and
under.
19 again.
But this one they were pumping into also goes across, or does it go to 19?
It does. It goes back up around the street and brings it down on the other side.
Goes down and back.
Into the same culvert from 19.
And that, Mr. Hostler, is what we're dealing with.
You know, if the winds had been 20 miles an hour more, the whole city would have flooded like in 93.
I quite believe that.
Yes, it would have. We've only been able to ameliorate 23 residences. There are many more. I'm attempting to do exactly that, to obtain grants for some of the individuals, the residents in this community, to have the ability to raise their properties. Also are investigating additional grants with respect to tornado winds and wind mitigation for the year 17. We're attempting to get grants to assist residents for that issue. So we're right on that whole issue.
Isn't there, there's an opportunity now to get out of the FEMA program also? I've just heard recently that's been approved in the state of Florida that you can get private flood insurance now.
Councilwoman Britton, could you turn your mic on?
Thought I had it on. I was talking about the private flood insurance, and I'm understanding that now Pasco County residents can now purchase private flood insurance?
That's true. I was given a quote, but I was too late. I'd already paid my premium for the year, so I have to wait till next year. If nothing changes, that is a possibility.
The issue is going to be the rates that will be charged. And what we can do.
They're better, actually, from when I made some phone calls in there.
Very possibly this time. But we hope to provide enough changes to the issues within our own community to drive down our flood insurance rates. If we can do that, then it'll be a competitive basis between both issues, and that citizens will have a choice. But one of my goals is to try and drive down that flood insurance rate.
Last but not least, Mr. RDG has donated these to the city. From 9/11, he had a wonderful ceremony, and I would love this one to sit at the desk, but.
That is your choice. We'll certainly put this in our cabinet out front so that the public may see it. It's part of a great memorial that Sam Pebble provided this community, and in respect for all the great individuals that this country lost, as a testimony to the endeavors of the many law enforcement, fire officials, and other officials who worked on that catastrophic event. But we thank Mr. G, and we thank Sam Pebble for their effort. And this will go in our front cabinet.
You can all, I won't clap you down. Thank you, Artie. Okay,
Motion to adjourn.
all in favor?
Aye.
That was really nice.
I'll have those maps for you tomorrow, the day